Yeah.
Do you want to start with a dab?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a ceremonial dab start for sure. I'm gonna get this Skywalker OG that we make here, some live resin project Skywalker OG butter.
Okay.
What do you got over there?
I am going to go with Papa Select. What we have here is a live rosin batter. And rosin, starting to talk about it, rosin is a mechanical separation process. This happens to be rosin from hash. Look at this bad boy.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Look at that. It's a nice color. I'm super excited about it. Papa Select has been doing some amazing things recently. So here we go.
I agree. All right. Cheers.
Yeah. I'm going with cold start.
Me too, technically.
I do not. Oh, you and your Puffco. Old school. I really like a good fire, but here we go.
I like the fire too. I was so mad because I can't clean my rigs, and I was like, I'm embarrassed to like chop this thing out that I've been using.
Yeah, I'm about to.
Everybody's out of alcohol. Can't do nothing.
I'm not gonna lie. I have 3 things of alcohol, right? This is all, I'm not allowing myself all of this for this dab session, but I'm just like, I can't have a dirty dab rig while I'm dabbing with rye. So this is what I'm allowing myself, really.
Little did you know that all my stuff is filthy right now. So, but
that's the value of things like the Puffco. The Puffco allows you to, clean it and keep it moving. Oh man, that flavor. Oh. See, when people do rosin right, people do rosin right. And that was done right.
So what's your favorite texture on a rosin? Do you like the whip or do you like the kind of shadow?
You're talking about in terms of textures? Okay, well, at this point, I don't think anyone really, really likes the shatter as much because no one really, really likes the shatter as much because it's so hard to move around. This texture, which is a bit of a wet batter, I like it. I like all of the textures, being really honest. It's all about convenience. This wet batter is nice. When it's like shale, I like that. I'm not gonna lie, I kind of really like this wet batter. So it's gonna be wet batter for the win right now. Wet batter for the win.
That's what I was asking. I agree. Like on the solvent side, same thing. Like all the diamonds and all that stuff. Like I don't really care about any of that. I'm really like a butter person. It gives you that like it's emulsified, right? So you get the same mix of cannabinoids and terpenes as opposed to like I got this big rock of this. It's just and it holds up. So like with the rosin, like rosin changes so fast that like if you put it doesn't change anymore. It kind of just.
It does. When you can get that stability, that makes such a big, big difference. I saw someone ask if I could explain about the hash pipe again. I actually didn't know we were on camera. So. Let me explain. I thought to myself, how did they see that? Okay, so let me explain that. This is a hash pipe. This is another hash pipe. And the way that they're used is I'm sorry, my hash pipe is a little bit dirty. You put a piece of hash on the side and you use something like this, whether it's supposed to be a quartz rod. I think this is a glass rod.
Where did Duchess go?
I think she just left, but I'm sure she will come on back. Let me call it.
So I have a question. I heard the word rosin, right? Is that what they use on violin strings? Because that's the last time I've heard of that word.
Yeah. No, it's funny. I mean, when you hear it like chemically, like you'll hear about like pine rosin or things like that, and so that's kind of where the origin of the term came from, because it is kind of a snappy product when it comes out. And one of the interesting things about rosin is that it's actually an ancient African extraction technique. And basically they would take the cannabis and hang it in kind of a vertical basket and put pressure on it and have it out in the sun. And over time, it would kind of, the oils would start dripping out. And so it's the pressure and heat thing was kind of novel when rosin started coming around. Everybody's like, oh, you could do that. But like literally it's a thing that's been done for a couple thousand years.
Awesome. So Africans came up with something once again that I didn't know about because of, of the rewriting of history. That's good to know.
Open my mind to
That's
that
good
too.
to know. Awesome.
I'm sorry myself.
Oh. Yeah, so on our side of things, we you were talking about your hash pipe, Duchess. You should finish that conversation.
I don't know what happened. It like disappeared. What you do is you heat it, and by heating it, you heat the hash, you heat the rod, you heat the hash, and then you inhale. It's a very clean way to smoke hash by itself. A lot of people don't want to smoke hash with tobacco or even flour. So using a hash pipe, this hash pipe is very easy to find, is the ideal way. So if you were gonna take dabs, which I happen to like taking dabs, please by all means use a hash pipe. And now let us hear about this live resin process.
Yeah, so live resin is something that has been in my life since its inception. I'm lucky enough to be good friends with Kind Bill, who's the guy who really kind of put it on the map. I was actually working at a rival company early on in the old days in Colorado, and we sort of saw what Bill was doing. And one of the early sessions in Colorado at the Hood Lab with like Adam Dunn and Nick T and those guys, Bill brought the live resin, and nobody knew what to do with it. They're like, what is this? It smells so crazy. It looks so crazy. Nobody had done anything like that. And on a core level, like live resin as we understand it, and as Live Resin Project understands it, is fresh frozen, pure N-butane only, no propane, no other solvents in there, and the plants have to be cared for so well every step throughout the process in order to get the final quality where you want it. So when we do our extractions, we do them super cold, and the whole reason is to keep as many terpenes and volatiles in as possible, and to be as gentle with those essential oils. A lot of people are kind of shy or not fans of solvent extracts, and I think that a lot of that is of course personal preference as well. But I think when you put it in context, like aspirin, there's a lot of things that are a pure chemical extract, and they're done with a similar method. And what we're really trying to do is to extract high level essential oils. So if you go to the store and buy essential oils, those are usually like steam distilled or sometimes ethanol distilled, or CO2. And what we found is that the cold butane is super, super selective. So it only takes the things that you want and leaves behind everything else. These other methods, you get a lot of noise in there. So, what you have with like a live resin concentrate is the cannabinoids that are in the plant, but you also get monoterpenes, sequiterpenes, and everything that was in the living plant, which is quite a bit different than dry material. So that's kind of the long and short of it. Yeah, so we've been at it for a long time. We were the first ones to kind of scale the process and get it to a point where you can actually make it in facilities. We had some of the first licensed labs in the entire country in Colorado. And now I'm out here in California for about 3 years, and we're on the shelf at Urbana, and happy to share the live resin with people.
Awesome. So I have a question, Ryan. So why is it that every comedian's high story starts with one day I took an edible or one day I took a dab? What is it about the sky that wasn't the limit that dabs had to take it to outer space?
So there's a little bit about that. So like I think the idea that concentrates are so potent and that they can knock you on your ass, like yeah, it's true, of course, but what people don't understand is that it's mostly controlled by temperature. So if you're able to do a very low temp dab, you're mostly just getting those volatile compounds and a little bit of the cannabinoids. So you can end up with something that's crazy flavorful and only gets you a little bit high, or similarly high to smoking a joint or a couple hits on a pipe or whatever. So I think that there's a lot of misconceptions about that, because a lot of people get served their first dab, whether it's live resin or rosin or shatter or whatever it is, and it's too hot, and they cough and they deprive themselves of oxygen while they're coughing, and then they don't feel good, so there's a bunch of there's a bunch of misconceptions there. And then on the edible side, like edibles actually convert to another chemical as they're passing through your liver. So me, I smoke hash all day. I'm like have a high tolerance, but if I eat 20 milligrams of an edible, like it gets me. and that's because I don't have a tolerance to that type of cannabinoid that converts in your liver. So like edibles, I personally kind of take it easy on edibles. I like cannabis in food more for like aromatics and texture and things like that than I do for infusion.
Very nice. Yeah, that you accurately described my first experience with a dab. It was with a blowtorch at my friend's apartment, and I coughed like crazy, and my world was spinning. So it's good to know that it's a temperature related thing. That changes the game, you know.
Yeah, well, and you know, having units like a Puffco and some of these other electronic units, like the Focus V Carta, that's another good unit that I really like. You know, this really lets you dial in your temperature, and in general, because it's an electric vaporizer, it's just a little more gentle.
Oh, okay.
You know, I personally prefer a torch still, like that's my thing, but you have to know how to judge it and how to get it to the right temperature, which mostly comes with experience. So, you know, if somebody goes to a party and somebody's giving them a dab and they don't know what they're doing, that's how you have a bad time. So it's very important to like be in the right context and have somebody to help you along.
That's good to know. Thanks.
Yep.
Dank, Duchess, how was your first ever, you know, hash, you know, dab? Like how was your first dab? What was the experience like, would you say?
My first hash dab, and when I'm saying hash, I'm saying hashish. I'm speaking of solventless specifically. My first hash dab was with Frenchie Cannoli, who became my mentor. And that's why I got into the hash game. I was taking a lot of solvent dabs at the 2014 Cannabis Cup, High Times Cannabis Cup. And I was dabbing everywhere, left, right, and center. And I found this one booth that was so well done, so nicely appointed. And when I got to the front, to take the dab, expecting to see, you know, yellow pieces of shatter, all I saw were these lumps of chocolate, these huge lumps of chocolate. And I was very disappointed because I don't like chocolate. So as I was walking away and fussing, oh, he doesn't even have any chocolate, you know, this is just chocolate and there's no dabs there. Little voice says, this is not chocolate, this is hashish. And I said, well, can you dab it? He said, but of course. And then that's when I dabbed hash for the first time. Quite an awesome experience. Hit you right in the eyes, across the brow, down the nose, over the ears, all that. And I didn't know anything about hash. You know, I knew about concentrates in terms of the fact that like I could take lots and lots of shatter and wax and crumble dabs, but I didn't know anything about hash. And that started my whole becoming a hash maker and becoming the Dank Duchess, all from that dab.
Are you guys upset that in your industry you did not trademark the hashtag before Twitter did? That would have been a gold mine right there.
Frenchie should like get that on general principle. Like that should be awarded to Frenchie and Mila on general principle.
Hash.
like a honorary doctorate or something, you know. Yeah, it's funny thinking back to like the super early days. Like, you know, I was doing strain reviews and photography and stuff back in Colorado in like 2009 and 2010 when the industry was first really going. You know, with dispensaries. Obviously, California had it moving, but a lot of the concentrates and a lot of those things were really just starting to crack in Colorado. And I think back to like the first time I ever smoked oil. It was in, I don't know if you ever saw the Essential vape. It was like a weird, I mean, it was basically like, it looked like a crack pipe. It had like a little vial thing that you screw in. It was horrible. But that was like one of the first pieces of equipment that was sold specifically for like, oh, smoke hash out of this. Mm-hmm. And it was, you know, we put some hash in there and we had no idea about temperatures or any of that. And I coughed so hard and just, I mean, it was so unpleasant. I'm like, I'm never doing this again. And then, you know, fast forward a few years and I was like, it's like all I think about pretty much is like, you know, concentrates and it's, you know, that really the thing that changed it for me was like the high flavor concentrates because, you know, the effect, like going to Amsterdam and smoking like traditional Lebanese hash and some of the stuff that's over there, like I did that very early on in my life. And so I had that context for like what that was, but I never really, you know, that has a different type of flavor, but like the specificity of something like a Skywalker OG versus a Tangy versus whatever extracted really well. I'd never had anything like that. And so that's when I was just like, okay, this is such a cleaner flavor than smoking flower. You know, which I do a lot of everything, but it's, you know, for my daily driver, I'm pretty much on the concentrates.
Mhm.
That's awesome. Right now, I'm still on the joints, but
Nothing wrong with being on the joints. I gotta
this is
tell you.
educational, so I might, I might come back to the hash. And is there a similarity between this, this type of hash and the ones you find traditionally in like the Middle East, like the hashish? Is that a similar product, or is that completely different?
Oh, I mean, hash is hash. The concept, I think you have to understand what the concept of hash is. Hash is the collection of trichomes. So whether you're collecting it via the traditional Tabata way, or you're collecting it in ice water hash, which is what I made, whether you're collecting it and dissolving the lipids, if you're making solvent, it's still all collection of trichomes.
Okay.
Now, you will find that the traditional method, which is a solventless method, has been continued, though modernized, with the use of the ice water technique, the use of machines. People have gone back to doing it by hand, but the idea of using ice and water to get the trichomes off as cleanly as possible, that's where you have your highest purity stuff, which is what you will eventually be able to dab. And perhaps if not as pure, or just to go on to the next level, making it into rosin. And from rosin, all the other things that are done, whether it's solventless diamonds, fractions, all the things that are happening, it all can tie back to the plant. And it all comes down to the collection of trichomes, however you go about doing it.
Yeah, well, and it's interesting. Like I've heard some people draw the distinction between concentrates and hash, where like hash is, hashish, like traditional physical separation methods, and then concentrates are, dissolving it or distilling it or doing a lot of those other things. Which I don't really draw that line, but that's one of the things that's interesting though, is that you can come at it from either way and kind of get to the same thing. But like you said, it really does all come from the plant. Like, I'm wearing our Gold Seal shirt, which is, those guys do really good work. And they, we did a batch for them that's, a 13-week sativa, which is their red Congo.
Nice.
And like making concentrates from that, and the effect and the flavor that you get from that unique plant is so different than, from the Skywalker or from anything else. And so it just really speaks to like, it all starts with the plant, no matter what it is. And the love of the hash making throughout whatever process you're using also really translates, where, if you're making it for industrial purposes, for infusion of edibles, for example, like a distillate product, there's no room for passion in that. It's kind of just, you find decent plant material and you make it. For something like live resin or rosin and water hash and traditional hash and dry sift and all that stuff, it's a very hands-on process. Even at the kind of scaled commercial levels that we're doing solvent extraction, you still really have to care for the plant material the whole way, and you have to treat it as if you grew it yourself.
Treat it like a kid.
I mean, that's what matters.
Well, it's somebody's kid, right? I mean, these farmers spend months and months and months to get a product to where it needs to be, and then what am I going to do? Screw it up? Like, it's disrespectful.
Oh, that makes sense. I actually wanted to, transition a little bit, and I'm curious about both your experiences at a Bong Appetit, the show about cannabis infused food. Do you still use cannabis in your cooking, or how was that experience like? Maybe I'll start with you, Ryan.
Well, yeah. So I mean, doing Bong Appetit was a really crazy experience. I mean, I never thought in a million years that I'd make 30 episodes of TV, and certainly not like where I'm showing people how to make live resin, and I'm hanging out with Duchess smoking Moroccan hash after we, made smoked lebna with weed, I mean, all kinds of crazy stuff. So that was a good time, right? But yeah, I mean, it's, for me, like I came into it as kind of the, meant to be kind of the cannabis voice of the show, and to kind of keep the facts straight and stuff like that. What I found doing it was that, partly because of the live resin and my understanding of what we have here, and the way that it changed my thinking about flavor and kind of everything around me, going into Bong Appetit, I was able to think about what we do with cannabis in a different way, where instead of just, dripping 10 milligrams of THC or CBD onto some food, we were, thinking about thinking about it more as a vegetable, thinking about it as an essential oil, thinking about it as all these things, where instead of doing that base infusion, maybe it's just an aromatic effect. Maybe you pull the cloche off the dish and you get this hit of crazy tangy vapor, whatever that may be. And so I think like what it's done for me is helped me understand that as a cannabis industry, we're actually far ahead of a lot of these kind of industrial flavor houses and a lot of these people who are doing similar things, because we care so much about the cannabis plant and the way that it's handled. So, food extracts and stuff are not made in the same way that we make our stuff, and it's pure and it's better. And you can really tell that when you show a chef something like that, they're like, wait, this is from one plant. They don't understand. And so it's mind blowing, and it's a whole palette of flavors for an artist to paint with. And I think that was the best thing, was showing that to chefs and then carrying that experience forward after the show. Having these interactions with some of the highest level people in the food industry who also generally tend to love cannabis, but they had no idea about any of this stuff. And when you really deep dive with people, they're coming at it from the food side and food science side. We're coming at it from the cannabis side, and we can kind of together bring it to the highest level. So, yeah.
No pun intended, right?
Yeah.
The highest level.
Yep. This is some sherbet butter. That's dab number 2 here.
That's awesome. So would you say there's like an additional flavor, in addition to umami was most recently added to the 5 in the flavor profile? Would you say cannabis is the next one there, or is it a hybrid between the sweet, salty, sour, bitter umami?
I mean, it's everything, right? Like I don't know if you can get salty in a dab. Maybe you can, but you sure as hell can get garlic. You can get But I think that what's really crazy is that cannabis as an organism makes more terpenes and a wider variety of terpenes than almost anything. And so instead of like an orange, where it's like you press an orange oil, you get an oil that smells just like oranges. At no point will you press an orange and it comes out smelling like garlic and tires and all these other things that we know and love in cannabis. And so that's what's really, like, when you look at it in a wider culinary sense, people don't know what's in this plant, and they don't know how to breed at scale to bring those things out. And all that work is just starting to be done from like an aromatic perspective, for example. Everybody was focused on THC and a lot of the main cannabinoids, but now I think increasingly, and you're seeing it in the hemp industry as well, they're starting to focus on terpene production.
Sure. That's awesome. That's fascinating. What about you, the Dank Duchess? I can't forget the.
No, that's why I just go with Duchess. See, in conversation, it's been years now. I know you just can't put it in conversation. It can go at the end, a signature, and then it's just Duchess. That doesn't work very well.
Duchess
so
with a capital D. So,
about Bong Appetit. So my experience on Bong Appetit obviously was very different from Rise, because Rai was the host and I was a guest in season 1. I was there for that Bedouin birthday. That was a phenomenal experience. And then smoking the hash afterwards was great. And then I was there for season 3, where I had the opportunity to make hash. Now that was great. That was great for me. As an experience for me. But besides that, I really appreciated being able to bridge that disconnect that a lot of people have between what is hash and like how it can be used, and breaking it down and showing them the part that I delighted a little bit every time people see it is when you throw the weed into all that ice and water and they're like, ah, where are you waiting? All that, but it's just like, it's gonna be great, believe me. It's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be fantastic. And then I'm not gonna lie, having Be Real call my hash legendary was great, because I have been growing weed for 17 years, and the first 10 years it was listening to Be Real on repeat while I was, clandestinely growing my weed that got me through it. So having him say that it was legendary was like, ah. And then at one point I was a judge where I got to eat, and just like with Rye, edibles aren't my thing. My joints, I don't know if you've seen, my joints are huge. I smoke big joints. I smoke a lot of hash. Rye's on dab number 2. I'm on dab number 7 right now or something. So, I can handle it. If it's over 20, 25 milligrams, I can't handle it. I am not good. Like, I was at I was on set with CBD just to make sure, because I was just like, I'm not gonna have one of these moments where I'm just too high. So I'm just gonna keep taking this CBD. But thankfully, I have to say the contestants, everybody understood that the point wasn't to overwhelm you with THC. The point was to get the flavors across and to give you a little buzz to let you know that something was happening, and they did that fantastically. So I have to say, after Bong Appetit, I started making all types of, experiments with oil, because I make hash, so I make infused oil all the time. But generally for topicals, for baths and stuff like that, you just use higher quality hash and fantastic things like avocado oil and olive oil, and you can make magic. But before all of that, because I was a grower, I eat a lot of raw cannabis. And just like Ryan was saying, using cannabis as a vegetable, that's where it's at. So a lot of people don't know that smoking is actually one of the least efficient ways to get these cannabinoids into your body. But if you're going for like raw cannabinoids, eat it just the way you make your kale smoothie. Make a cannabis smoothie. And I have to say that for my PMS, that especially that raw cannabis is the way to go. So in 2017, I grew a lot of plants, and then I was able to save about 19,000 leaves, which I immediately flash froze. So I've been working through those leaves, especially since I'm not growing as large anymore. But I have to tell you, it makes me feel fantastic, and taking control of your health and your wellness is the best thing. So after Bong Appetit, I sure did think about cannabis in a different way, in terms of just how I can ingest it in different ways. So thanks, Rye.
Yeah, no, it's cool. And the point you brought up about acidic cannabinoids is like one of the most important things. Is, people have always, for edibles and topicals, they've pretty much always focused on active THC, because in a state like California, for example, that's what has to go on your label by law. So you can make, this is one of those weird things, if you see like a THCA acidic form product on the shelf somewhere, you'll see the testing label will still say THC, and that's not what it is. And so THCA is totally different. It doesn't, that's what's in this concentrate right now, but it becomes THC when you actually heat it and vaporize it or smoke it or put it into an edible. But THCA and CBDA and CBGA and all these other compounds are useful, maybe more useful for a lot of the things that people use cannabis for as medicine. For topical use, for pain, for inflammation, like all those have in lab studies shown to be arguably more effective than their active counterparts. And it's one of those things that as an industry we've sort of missed, because and it's starting to correct itself, but it's been a missed opportunity to explain some of that stuff, because everybody thinks, oh, I'm going to get high from this. It's like, no, THCA won't get you high unless you very intently intend for it to get you high. If you rub it on yourself or if you eat it as is, it won't get you the traditional high, but it has a lot of other benefits.
That's awesome. So Duchess said that she's been growing for 17 years. You've been in the cannabis industry for a really long time. How frustrating was it, trying to talk to people about cannabis in years gone by who weren't really exposed to this? I kind of associate it with when people say, oh, I don't do spicy food, and you're like, how don't you do spicy food? Why? You don't, come on, like how was it back in the day versus now? I'm sure right now the general level of education is much higher than it was back then. So what would you say, was that, how did that change over time in terms of frustrations?
Yeah, I mean, it's, thinking back to like when I first started smoking weed when I was, 14 in a tiny town in Colorado, I never thought that, I thought maybe like in our lifetimes there would be some sort of, because I knew California was already starting to do some moves for, for medical use and that kind of thing. So I had some conception that maybe it would be different one day, but like, I never thought in a million years that I would be able to have these open conversations with people who otherwise would have just walls built up all around them. And I think that, regardless of the overall like goodness of these things, like the story about, the focus on CBD, I think is a little bit misguided, but it also helped kind of steer the conversation in a way where people say, oh, okay, so this plant isn't just about getting high. And it started kind of breaking some of these barriers down. and straight medical use did the same thing. So, my argument is that like all use is medical use. Whether somebody's smoking cannabis to have a good time, it's still doing something for their mood. It's doing something about them. So, I think people are starting to understand that, and they're starting to judge people less. And I think, having companies that are existing in multiple states, or in some cases internationally, really goes a long way to show kind of traditional, like buttoned up, suit and tie kind of people that, it is a real industry, and it is something that they should be paying attention to. So even if they're not going to engage with cannabis, they can at least understand that it's being handled legitly by people who are smart and motivated and all of the things. And so I think those kind of stoner perceptions are starting to be chipped away. And I think that, people who, especially like older people and stuff who were a child of, we all are, but, propaganda, 100 years of propaganda is some real shit. And, people who have had that pounded into their head for so long are now some of the people that are most open to it. Seniors are very open to cannabis right now if it's brought to them in the right way.
That makes sense. And I'm passing the same question along to you, Duchess. I have some follow-ups, but I feel like it'll be, good to get both perspectives here.
Well, I had a different experience because I personally was completely anti-cannabis until about 2002, 2003. So I was 100% just say no, went through all of college and everything, just say no. So I was anti-cannabis. So when I tried cannabis the first time, and I realized I could still do calculus, and that was 100% the test. I could still do calculus. And then I literally said, those fuckers lied. And my life changed immediately, like right after that. I just smoked so much weed right after that I couldn't afford it. So then we had to start growing just because I couldn't afford it. And I didn't have an issue about talking to people because I live in Florida. And so I had 10 years of doing Florida on the hush hush. I was 10 years of doing the whole closet grower thing. And that was in itself super stressful. And it was one of the main reasons I came over here to California, because the stress of living two different lives was just too much for me. I did not feel like I had the, I didn't feel like I had the not even just the knowledge, but I didn't feel like I had the justification to really explain to people why I was involved with cannabis. And so I just kept that as a total nobody knew about that part of my life until I moved to California, and I was here for a year. Went all the way to Spain for like a wedding, and then went to a cannabis cup, and I was recognized there. And I just realized what cannabis could be, that I decided to come out to everybody at one time on Facebook. I took a video. And so that like stopped me from doing the whole coming out bit by bit. I just decided at this point, you're just going to accept me. Now, what are you going to say about it? And I have to say, only one person had something to say. And by then I really knew my stuff. So I could talk that, and I had no issue. So I haven't been a person that has felt the, as Duchess, I haven't felt that stigma, mainly because I thrust myself out there at once to everybody. So I didn't have to like sort of figure out how people were feeling, and I had something to back it up. And I think that's the biggest thing, is that people feel that it's hard to handle the stigma, partially because they don't have as much education. So they don't know how to come back against the propaganda that has been drilled into our heads over and over and over, with real information. Because I know I had my boyfriend, I was very upset with him because I said, you're so smart. Why would you have cannabis? Cannabis kills your brain and all of this. But it was 100% untrue. And now I can point to the studies. Let me tell you about the 1993 Lancet study. And then, all of that is important. And if we don't have to have everyone at the level of being a scientist, but a general layperson's competence about cannabis allows us to teach each other. Each one teach one with that. And as long as we more and more know someone else, that's another thing. Coming out of the green closet, just like coming out of the closet with regard to sexuality. Once you find out that, I know John. John's gay, but I've known John my whole life. John's been pretty good. Then like, perhaps there's not something so terrible about that. Same thing like, Billy's doing business. Billy's been a businessman. But now he's doing business in cannabis. That maybe is not like Ray on the corner being a drug dealer. Which of course has its own issues with societal's view on cannabis and who gets to benefit from it, who doesn't. But that stigma, I think, bit by bit does get chipped down. And a big person with that was Sanjay Gupta. My mom did not express any kind of interest in cannabis until one day, I'm telling you, I was smoking and inhaling. The phone call came in, and my mom was like, "Are you watching Sanjay? Oh, have you seen what he's saying?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what? What is he saying?" "Oh, the woman with the cerebral palsy." And my mom suddenly just became completely pro cannabis in 1 hour. And I was like, oh my gosh, Sanjay Gupta. And so I too felt that the CBD focus was a bit misguided, but at the same time, it got us talking. It got us talking and being able to talk about it with your church members and people in the community and your family, and every bit in the right direction, even if it's not completely straight trajectory, is a good thing in my opinion.
Yeah, and it's if you have the movies is always the Stoner Bros and things like that. Maybe the next movie needs to be a huge cannabis corporation taking on big tobacco, and that could be fun. But so just before we wrap it up, if Rai could just give us a little bit closing sort of overview of the Live Resin Project, anything cool coming up, and what you want the people at home to take from this.
Yeah. So you can get we're on the shelf at Urbana, and we're really focusing on butter right now. I mean, frankly, it's my favorite texture. We talked about it earlier, versus diamonds and some of the other things that are kind of hot right now. I think that a really nice supple butter gives you the best overall kind of dab experience. So that's what we're really focusing on right now. So there's some great flavors over there. I'm about to hit the sherbet, which is on the shelf. We got a Skywalker I really love. The Gold Seal Red Congolese took a 3rd place at the Emerald Cup, this recent year. And so that's on the shelf as well. So you can actually go buy a cup winner. So it's fun. And we have a 100% live resin vape pen coming up. We have some other exciting things in the pipeline, but the focus really for us is just continuing to try to find the best plants to extract, because that's really the battle. It all starts with the plant, and it all starts with the farmers. And being in California, we have access to arguably the best cannabis on the planet, and it's really fortunate. It's cool. So we're based in Oakland. We're rocking in California for the duration. So
awesome. And that's liveresinproject.com.
Yep. Right. And at Live Resin Project, I'm at Cannabis Encyclopedia. You guys, you can watch Bong Appetit, watch Duchess, make hash on TV, watch all that stuff. It's on Hulu right now, so you can jump in. My favorite episode, there's one where we pair live resin with a beverage and food in kind of a triangle pairing. So that's a season 1 episode called Tour de Terpenes. So definitely check that one out. And you can see my dear friend Kind Bill, who's kind of the creator of Live Resin. He makes hash, makes live resin, and you can see the whole process on our Brazilian episode, which is season 2. So.
Awesome, that's great. Thank you, Ryan. And to close, Duchess, we have a couple minutes. How's the hash maker? Things about the hash maker?
No.
Oh, she has.
Oh, what happened? Oh no.
But yeah, no. But thank you so much, Rai. It was really, really cool talking to you. Obviously, Urbana. Gary, thanks for having us. And we'll definitely keep in touch. Check you guys out and keep in line with the updates. Thank you so much.